Hello, my name is Chris Ekpekurede. I'm an engineer. I'm the author of several books and an elder of the Church of Christ. Now, the coordinator of this summit has asked me to share some thoughts on covenant strategies for taking over the marketplace. Maybe we should begin by asking ourselves what we mean by the marketplace. Now, for me, the marketplace is a combination of just two words: the customers. The customers. So when we are talking about taking over the marketplace, as far as I'm concerned, what it means is taking over the hearts and minds of the customers. Now, the theme of the summit itself is quite apt in that here we speak about the word covenant. Now, another word, a synonym for that word covenant, is agreement. Now, the moment you, a service provider, present yourself to provide a service to a customer or a group of customers, you have entered into a covenant or an agreement. Now, many such service contracts are written down. Far many others are simply an understanding between the service provider and the service recipient. They are not necessarily written down. If you like, you may describe the relationship between the provider and the receiver as an understanding. But whether the covenant or agreement is written down or not, it is binding on both parties. It is binding particularly on the service provider. And this understanding appears to be missing among many service providers, to the extent that they speak and act in ways that will never deliver to them the marketplace. They speak and act in ways, service providers, in ways that will not win them the hearts of customers. Now, in my professional career, I was taught early that the customer is to be regarded as king or queen. Now, it didn't matter whether the customer is a tall guy, a short guy, a rich guy, a poor guy. It didn't matter who the customer is, what I was taught. Now, it also didn't matter, from what I was taught, what the attitude of the customer is. The customer could be temperamental. The customer could be one lacking in judgment, in patience, etc., etc. Whoever and whatever the customer is, I was taught that the customer is to be regarded as king, no matter who or what he is. Now, this is a tough call on a service provider, isn't it? It is. But so is winning the marketplace a tough call. You will never win the marketplace if you do not act professionally towards the customer all the time. All the time. In one of my books, Keys to Professionalism, I explain to the fullest detail, probably in details you will never find in any other book, what the implications of acting professionally are. How we may win customers over once and for all. And this is the salient point that runs between the covers of this book. Now, the fact that you possess a skill or a trade does not necessarily make you a professional. There are many skilled people who are failures in the marketplace, many skilled people who are poor, not because they don't have a skill, they just don't have all the ingredients required to win the hearts of the customer. So what is it that gives the professional the marketplace? What is it that will make you a professional? Here is the answer I give in Keys to Professionalism. It is a combination of two words. The professional must have a skill, and then he must have another thing, a little word called attitude. Attitude. So in Keys to Professionalism, I describe the professional in an equation. Professionalism is equal to skill plus attitude. If you have wonderful skills, if you have the best trade in your own area of any human profession, but lack the commensurate attitude, you can't be a professional. And if you have all the attitude in the world but do not possess the skill, you will not be a professional. That's just it. You need skill and competence and attitude to be a professional, to take over the marketplace. The book deals with the entirety of this subject in details that, I repeat, you won't find elsewhere. That's Keys to Professionalism. I will suggest to you that you get a copy. Now, many people fail the professionalism test in attitude. That is where they fail. Now, one aspect of attitude that I would like to share in the few minutes that I have is the concept of servanthood. Servanthood. A professional must be a core servant. And Jesus Christ demonstrated this amply in Scripture. There is a wrong attitude towards the customer, and there is a right attitude towards the customer. The wrong or negative attitude seeks to draw attention to self. As a service provider, you cannot be the center of attraction. Your customer must be cast in the center of attraction. A negative attitude seeks masterhood rather than servanthood. Now I tell you, no service provider will possess the marketplace if they assume the state of the master. No, they must assume the position of the servant. Professionals must be servants. Now, I would like to delve a little bit into some details of what servanthood or being a servant is by looking at the typical situation in a king's palace. Here I am, a servant in a king's palace. What are the expectations of me as a servant? That is the expectation of the one who must take over the marketplace. That is the expectation of the one who must be a professional. No professionalism, no taking over the marketplace. Now, let us look at a few points concerning how a servant conducts himself. Now, some of these things are quite hard to imbibe. That is because the human nature naturally tends towards lording it over. The human nature naturally tends towards being the master rather than the servant. But I repeat, no professional is going to shine in the marketplace if they assume the role of a master. They must assume the role of a perpetual servant. Now, how does the servant present himself or herself in the king's palace? Now, the servant is one person who willingly serves another to meet the wishes of that person that they serve. A servant willingly serves another to meet the wishes of that person. So a servant serves the wishes of other people. That is who you are going to be if you are going to take over the marketplace. Now, the servant surrenders his rights or her rights to remain a servant. I repeat, the servant must surrender his rights, her rights, to remain a servant. If you are going to take over the marketplace, you can't fight for rights. Now, I will get into more detail on this very soon. Now, here is the anatomy of the servant. The servant should never get weary in doing well. The Bible says, do not be weary in well-doing, because in season you will reap a reward. The servant in the king's palace cannot afford to be weary, nor can you if you are going to be a professional. Now, what that means is this. Don't forget that you are not the only person, you are not the only service provider at the disposal of the customer. The moment you become weary, or slack in well-doing, he will abandon you and look for another. It's as simple as that. The servant does not get weary or he gets kicked out of the palace. Now, 2, when the servant comes to work, the servant takes off his or her crown. Like I said before, Jesus demonstrated it. The servant dons or wears the apparel of the servant. Jesus demonstrated this when at the Last Supper he took an apron, wore it, and began to wash the feet and to serve of the disciples and to serve them. You must wear the garb or don the apparel of the servant before your customers. That is why when people get imprisoned, the first thing that is done is to give them a prison uniform. You know why this is so? It is to help them to forget who they think they were before they became prisoners. The prison robe is to let you know that you are a different person now. You are not a free citizen. You are a servant of the state. So you may be a former president, a governor, or a minister, whatever. The moment you become a prisoner, they change your apparel because you have become a servant. Now, 3, servants do not squabble over their rights. By the very nature of their calling, servants have few rights. So there aren't so many rights to fight over. The service provider, the professional who must win the marketplace, can't go out there competing with the customer over rights. You must try to, cover your rights. You must try to water down your rights just to please the customer. Your primary motive is to uphold the rights of the customer, not yours. Servants don't squabble over rights because they don't have many of them. Now, 4, a servant is at the beck and call of the master. That is who the professional is. If you are going to take the marketplace, take over the marketplace, you must be at the beck and call of your customers. Whenever the customers snap your fingers and they need you, you are to show up. The professional who is going to take over the marketplace is like a firefighter. He can be called in the morning, he can be called in the evening, he can be called in the middle of the night. If there is a fire, they will call on him. If you are going to take over the marketplace, you will behave like a firefighter. 5, the servant does not rebuff the correction of the master. Now let's face it, sometimes the master's opinion, the customer's opinion may be wrong. The master's opinion may be downright, misjudged. But it is not the place of the it is not the place of the servant to rebuff the suggestions of the master. The professional who is going to take the marketplace must receive, accept the opinion and the suggestions of the customer and find a way to deal with wrong opinions and suggestions without appearing to rebuff the customer. Too many service providers out there, like I said earlier, in situations like this, want to put on the role of a master. No, you can't win the marketplace. Finally, let me say about the servant. The servant is not seen in the palace. Despite all the work he or she does, the servant is not a visible person. When the glory time comes, the servant is not to be seen. The servant maintains a low profile. The professional who is going to take over the marketplace must let the customer shine, must let the customer's head swell. That is the way the customer is going to appreciate you as a service provider. Don't go competing for recognition with your customers. In fact, you are there to project the recognition of the customer. That is why you are a servant. And that is how you can take over the marketplace. Well, time does not permit me to go into more details concerning this subject because it is so vast. But like I said, get keys to professionalism. You will find more than enough that you need to be the perfect professional that you should be if you are going to take the marketplace. Here is wishing you a takeover of the marketplace via your professionalism. Thank you.